and Development. Sorry about that. We got a recording in progress prompt. So I'd like to welcome everyone to Planning and Development meeting of Wednesday, June 2nd. It's 5:30. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning certain gatherings such that an in-person meeting of the City Council Standing Committee is not possible, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. Persons who wish to do so are invited to view the meeting, and you have that information on our website. And I just wanted to note that if you're calling in on a phone, you can press *9 and request to speak. If you're watching on a computer device, there's a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options to be recognized to speak. However, the only public hearings tonight are items 3 and 4, which are poll petitions, which we'll be hearing later on in the agenda. So what I'd like to do before we get started is introduce the city councilors who are on the call. First of all, Planning and Development includes Councilor Jen Holgram. Jen, just raise your hand. Great. Councilor Pett, Barry Pett. Thank you. And me, Val Gilman. And I also welcome Ward 1 City Councilor Scott Memard and Jamie O'Hara at large City Councilor. So we have a quorum of the full committee. I also would like to acknowledge a couple of members of city staff, our CFO, John Dunn, Sherry Carvelis, who is our Clerk of Committees, Superintendent Ben Lummis, Jonathan Pope, our School Committee Chair, as well as the Chair of the Building Committee, and Joanne Sinos, who is our City Clerk. And let me just see if I see any more members of city staff on the call. I do not. And when we do each application, we will ask the applicant to make sure that their team is fully identified. Council Holgram?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to note for the record that school committee member Joel Favaza is here, although he's here for a different matter as well. And also school committee member Kathy Clancy is in the audience.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Okay, so also want to mention that all of our votes will be by roll call. So first order of business is special council permit 2021-002 Webster Street, number 11, map 47, lot 13, GZO section 3.1.6b. Building heights and access of 35 feet in the R20 low medium density residential district. And this has been continued from May 19th, 2021. And just to give you a little bit of understanding of the history, we had our first meeting on May 5th. We had a site visit after that. We had our second meeting on May 19th, meeting 2. And we had a site visit after that, May 27th, 21. We had 3 site visits on that day. And then here we are on June 2nd, 2021. So just be mindful that this is not a public hearing tonight. We have a full quorum of the City Council. And we'll be answering a lot of the questions that have come up in public and doing looking at the shadow study. And there's a lot to cover right now. So I'd like to turn the meeting over to our applicant, Superintendent Lummis. And if you could introduce the team, that would be great. And then we'd love to see your presentation and in looking at it, because it was posted on our website for the public to see, which we appreciate. You have incorporated all the questions that came up, and the site visits, and it's very appreciated. So without further ado, Superintendent Lemus, welcome. And if you could start off and introduce the team to us, and then we'll look forward to the presentation. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Councilor Gilman. Really appreciate all of your work and leadership on this. As you described, it's been a very sort of open process. I think you've led a process that allowed many, many folks to not only provide input, but also ask lots of questions and opportunities to see, to work with our team, and also to get a lot of information and ask good questions. And I know I appreciate that. I hope you know, members of the community appreciate that, and I know also our team appreciates that. So thank you for your leadership, and also Ms. Holmgren, Mr. Memhards, you know, your work on this as well. Mr. Pett, of course, as well, and the good questions that we've got from other counselors. Really appreciate that. So as you said, our team's been hard at work, not only collecting the questions, you know, through, you know, that have come through you, but also now being able to give, you know, full answers to folks. And so appreciate this forum quite a bit. So our team, obviously, Jonathan Pope, school committee chair, is also the building committee chair with me. We have Mark Lydon and Brian Hermadka, who are from our project managers, CBRE Heary. And then also from our design team, from architects, Brad Dorr and Michelle Rogers from Dorr and Whittier. So I believe that Michelle and Brad will kick things off. Jonathan, do you have anything else to add right now?
No, not right now. You did a good job. Thanks.
Great. All right. Super. Thanks, folks. And Michelle and Brad, take it away.
Great, thank you. And for those of you who are on the call, make sure that you're muted unless you're speaking. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Gilman. Thank you, other councilors. Thank you for the introduction, Ben. So as you correctly pointed out, Councilor Gilman, we have, I think, all of the questions that you've provided us, we have responses to. And what we've done is we've incorporated those into a PowerPoint presentation, which Michelle will go through, and I'll kind of be your color guy as necessary. And we also have a video, right, that we can go through and show the shadow study from a couple different dates so that everybody will have a chance to look at that. And then what we'll do is we'll turn that back to you after we've, you know, had a chance to go through that, and then you can orchestrate any questions either from P&D and or anyone else as you see appropriate. So with that, Michelle, maybe what we'll do is just turn it over to you, and we'll go through all of the questions and the rest of the presentation.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen now. And now I hit that.
There you go.
There we go.
We're on, thank you.
And there we go. Does everybody see the full screen now?
You do. Thank you.
Great. So again, thank you so much for having us and allowing us to meet with you on the site to go through the site walk and to be able to address all of these questions. Since our submission, we have had, I think, 2 formal site walks, but each of those were divided into, I think, 3 or 4 sections. So throughout those site walks, we have gathered several questions, I think in excess of 35 questions, which we're going to try to go through step by step tonight and answer for you. Of those questions, when we gathered all of them, we began to look at each question and sort of break them up into different groups. There were several general questions just about our process. There's many questions about the site plan and the fill and grade elevations. There are a few building questions. And then of course, there was the shadow study, which we're going to provide for you again. And then there were a few questions about how to access the website. So I know I went through that with our last presentation, but I'll just walk you through step by step one more time so that everybody knows how to get to the drawings, to see all of the work that we have done, to see everything that's been presented to the MSBA, and to stay up to date with all of the plans. So with that said, the first question is, why are we here? So we are here because it's a special permit for height of the building, and a special permit is different than a variance. And I want to be very clear about this. A special permit is allowed by zoning. So it's something that is, you go and ask for it because there's something in the zoning ordinance that allows you to request something different than what's in the dimensional tables. Variance is not allowed by zoning, so therefore it's a whole different process. Our request is for the height that exceeds the R20 zoning of 30 feet. And yes, there's been some confusion because R20 is 30 feet and we're here asking for something in excess of 35 feet. And that's because section 3.1.6 is divided into two sections. Under A, if the building is between 30 and 35 feet, you go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But if you're in excess of 35 feet, you come to City Council for approval of that height. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I think there was some confusion over exactly what was in the dimensional table. So again, we have 36 questions and I'm going to go through each question and I will read them and I will read our response so that we're very clear about what we're responding to. So the first, of course, we're going to start off right with the zoning table and some of the general questions that came out of the process.
Actually, Michelle, before you go any further, this is through the chair. Would you prefer to have questions, right? The P&D subcommittee have questions for each question, or would you prefer to wait till the end, given the number of questions?
I would say wait till the end, but Counselor Pett and Holgram, if there's something really critical that comes up that you want clarification at the point, just unmute yourself and just say, you know, Madam Chair, I have a question. But does that make sense? Okay, Counselor Pett gave me a thumbs up, and Counselor Holgram, I don't see your photo around the perimeter of this.
She's
so-
got a thumbs up too.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
good,
you.
good. Okay.
And just interrupt me if I'm going
Okay.
along.
So let's shout out if there's an important question. And then if not, we'll hold our questions until the end. So thank you.
All right, so what I tried to do was record the questions exactly as they were asked. This way that to avoid any confusion between what was asked and any interpretation of them. So could you please validate the height limit zoning of structures in the Webster Street school location is 30 feet, not 35 feet. So as we noted in our presentation back in May 5th and in the application for special permit, we have identified section 3.2 dimensional requirements for R20. That height limit we did identify as 30 feet. However, again, the special permit under section 3.1.6, we are coming here requesting height for in excess of 35 feet. So we're seeking special permit for a building that exceeds 35 feet. How much of the variance is being requested? So again, just because language is important, it's a request for special permit, and the request is for a maximum building height of 56.5 feet, which is 26.5 feet in excess of the 30-foot dimensional table. And the 56.5 was the adjustment that we made at the last meeting. So it went from 54 to 56.5. According to the zoning ordinance, the allowable building height in R20 is 30 feet. The architect's presentation, I assume they meant the May 5th presentation, shows the maximum height of the building at 54 at the clear story. Therefore, a variance of 24 is being requested. Special permit again, and the maximum height of 56.5 feet is being requested and that reflects section 3.18, and that correction was made to include the height from existing average grade. And this is a difference of 2.5 feet. So we went from the 54 feet to the 56.5. And I will explain how we determined the average grade when I get into some of the site questions that were asked. Per section 3.18, the building height is defined as the vertical distance measured from the average grade. These two questions are very similar, and it shows the building height from the proposed grade and not from the existing grade. And that that was a correct statement, and we made that correction for the last meeting and updated our application. Please verify both the maximum height and the amount of relief requested from the zoning limit, since it's my understanding that the project will require an even larger variance than 24 feet. So the special permit, again, request is for the building height of 56.5. The average grade is 45.5. Again, I'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the grading of the site. And the total is 26.5 feet above the 30-foot R20 zoning dimensional table. So this is the zoning dimensional table.
Michelle,
and
Michelle, sorry, this is Ben. I just want to
Yep,
clarify
absolutely.
one thing. Just want to clarify one thing, which is, and we raised this at the last meeting, but I just want to reiterate is those are changes related to the proposal. Those aren't changes to the actual height of the actual height of the building in space, correct?
That's correct. So the grade is lower than, but the building didn't get higher. We just took the measurement from a lower grade.
So the request changes to 26.5, but the actual building is not moved in any way, shape, or form, is not taller than you guys originally explained, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent, for that clarification.
So the dimensional table, as you see, we updated to add that 56.5, the 56 feet 6 inches at the clear story. Again, it is 54 feet from the finished grade, which will be higher than the existing grade. Everything else in that proposed column, you can see is conforms to the zoning ordinance. And we actually are correcting an existing non-conforming ordinance, and that is the front yard setback. And you can see down at the bottom of the table there, this is where we reference that the maximum height may be increased by special permit pursuant to section 3.16, and the double star indicating that the average grade as defined in 3.18. And I'm not going to read those to you, but I have included that for those of you who are not familiar with all of the zoning ordinance pieces. These are the two pieces that we're referencing when we talk about the special permit and the height of the building.
Michelle, can you
From
just
average grade.
would you mind just reading 3.1.6B, just so we can
Oh,
absolutely
sure.
clear with what is in front of us? Thank you.
Sure. 3.1.6B says the building heights in excess of 35 feet may be authorized by special permit issued by City Council. Said permit shall contain such conditions as the council deems necessary and shall only issue upon a written determination by the council that such increase in the allowable height is consistent with the neighborhood character and will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood because of obstruction of use, overshadowing of other properties, or impairment to utilities or other adverse effects, impacts, sorry.
Thank you.
Also, I want to bring to your attention, because the question comes up later, is under 3.18, the average grade and the height of the building does not include mechanical, rooftop mechanical units or equipment. So that is that bottom line under the average grade.
Mhm.
General questions. So how many butters were notified? And Val, I know that you had said all of them, but I'm not sure how many that was. So I didn't.
So there are 24 different abutters, and we got the official list from the city. And we had 2 different site visits, and the first site visit, Councilor Cox and I took care of the distribution and went door to door. And there were about 6 or 7 that were PO boxes in different locations, but we had plenty of time to notice the abutters. And then more recently, Councilor Holgram was great enough to, we took it to the next level based on a recommendation, I believe it was from Patty Amaral, to have the abutters notices translated, and Councilor Holgram did that, and we translated them into Portuguese, and Spanish. And I did the walkarounds of that. And one of the things that I want to be clear on when we talk about this is that site visits are not open meetings per the open meeting law. They're meetings that are don't require to be posted. They're meetings for the city council, or in some cases zoning board and planning board also has them. So we have always tried to be as inclusive as possible, particularly with the butters. And I would say that the more recent sessions on the 27th, we probably averaged about a dozen for each of the 3 sessions. So we were glad that a lot of members of the public came, not just the butters. We called out to anyone that wanted to come when we realized that they weren't filled. We were trying to keep them as reasonably populated because it was only a day or 2 after the emergency order ended. And there are some people that are still concerned about being too close in proximity, but it worked out really well. And we had a really large crowd there. So I'm grateful to that. So hopefully that answers the question.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
The question is, when are bid documents for the new school that include both plan view and elevations, including civil drawings, available for counselors and public review? So the bid documents are, they'll be issued in 3 separate phases, but the ones that include all of the plans and all of the elevations, those are coming out in October of 2021. And again, all of the plans that have been issued to date, which include elevations, civil drawings, plan drawings, landscape drawings, all of those packages, as we go through each phase, the design development, currently the 60% construction documents phase, each of those get posted onto the project website shortly after they're issued. So again, I will show you how to get to that project website at the end of this presentation, but you can be looking for the next set of documents to be posted shortly after the July 7th, when we're issued them to the MSBA.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add to that, that this is, there's a very prescribed and formal process with the MSBA, right, that this responds to. And so all of these drawings are submitted to the MSBA and then contemporaneously posted to the website, as Michelle said. So it's not arbitrary. It's very consistent with the process that's prescribed by the MSBA.
Thank you.
What drawings that include height and elevation references are on file to date, and where can the public see them if they're interested? And again, it will be on that website under the tab of key documents, and I'll go through that again at the end of this. What is the height of the West Parish School? So that's a really good question because it's a great comparison. The academic wing of the West Parish School is 46 feet in height, so very similar to our proposed height here. And the tallest point of that school is 49 feet. And I think in the document that you probably posted, Val, was 50 feet. I went back and looked at the existing conditions and it's 49 feet. So just a small edit to that. So if you're looking at the West Parish School, it's a really good basis for the way that the massing will feel for the new school. Is there a basement at the proposed school? No, there is no basement. This is slab on grade. There is no crawl space. Again, very similar to the West Parish School. What is the typical height of a story in a school building? So modern schools are about 14 feet from floor to floor. Okay, so that's, including all of the stuff that happens above the ceiling. This particular building is 16 feet on the first floor and then 14 feet for the 2 upper floors. And the reason for that is because we needed a little bit more height in the cafeteria area and didn't want to have a transition on the 2nd floor, which would have meant additional ramping and elevator stops and a lot of other issues. So just raising the floor to floor for the lower, for that first floor actually solved that problem. On the gym side, it's 32 feet from the height of the gym to the roof. So you have 16 feet for the cafeteria and 32 feet for the gym. And that's so that you can actually play basketball without hitting the structure above. How many floors are in the building? So there are 3 floors on the academic wing, and on the other side, which we call the public wing, that is two floors. That is the cafeteria and then the gymnasium above, or the administration with the library, media center, and art room above. What will happen to this project if it is not approved for the height? And I think Mr. Pope is going to discuss this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I would just like to start by saying that the building cannot change. If this special permit is not issued, basically, we have to go back to square one. The building that we're in the process of trying to build has been approved by the building committee, has been approved by the school committee, it's been approved by the city council, and it's the building that was voted on by the community. And it's been approved by MSBA. At this point, we cannot change the building. We'd have to go back to square one. And what that would mean is there'd be a loss of $4 million in project expenses, a loss of MSBA funding, and the continued need to address the following educational and facility shortfalls in both the Veterans and the East Gloucester Elementary School. A new start would likely take 6 to 7 years to complete and would very well face similar challenges, whether it be groups opposed to the project or other site or construction issues. In addition to the loss of MSBA funding and all the project costs to date, a new project would need to seek voter approval and would cost significantly more than the project's current price tag. The city would also be liable for the 2-year lease on the St. Anne's School, using similar project costs as today and attributing 4% inflation. The future costs would likely be over $90 million, plus $23 million. It is difficult to quantify the cost impact this would have on teachers, students, and the community at large, resulting in inferior educational facilities and learning during this period. The city would also need to pay the costs of keeping both of the schools operational until the new facility is available.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you. So then, the next question is it standard process to go for height variance or height special permit after asking the voters for the debt exclusion override of the elementary school? And why was the height permit not known to taxpayers or butters before? So yes, the answer is yes, it is typically, we go for the special permits and for any kind of permitting after we already have the approval to go forward with the project. And that's because you go into design development after you're approved to move forward. The approximate height of this building has always been shown as the 3-story academic wing and a taller clear story entrance area. It's always been referenced as too similar in height to the West Parish School. So that has been out there for quite a while. And it is the standard operating permitting process. Why has my request been denied to tape the pole for 30 feet? I believe this has been done on site. So Brad has been out there with a bucket truck. He has taped the elevation of several elevations on all of the poles. And then they're out there on the poles. You'll actually see a chart that will tell you exactly what you're looking at, but everything is color coded. So if anyone has the time to go out to see the site, I think you'll see that where all those markings have been identified.
And I would just like to add that Counselors Holgram and Pett have gone to the site and have seen the 30-foot marking. So that was appreciated. That was something that was done last Friday. And for members of the public, you can go by as long as school is not in session. You can walk up to those poles and take a look at the color coding and the design. I also wanted to mention something. I think it's a good opportunity to interject here on question number 10. Council Payson was talking to an attorney today, Tom Mullen, Esquire, and he wanted to just bring this to our attention. That specifically, there's not a requirement in the zoning ordinance that a pole be erected or to show the proposed height of a school, or that any other particular height, such as an as of right height of 30 feet, or the city council's special permit limit of 35 be marked on such pole. The ordinance does require a balloon or a crane test in the context of a special permit for commercial wind energy conversion facilities. This attorney said that he sees no similar requirement applicable here. So it was just something that it was kind of pertinent to this particular site visit, because there's been a lot of controversy, but I do think that we've gone above and beyond with the markings and repeats and going back and accommodated everything, including a 30-foot by right. And when we say by right, what that means is that without any permit right now, 30 feet would be allowable, provided that the zoning and the side and the different, footage between lots met the zoning. But that was something that was extra, and I do think that we really and appreciate Public Works really helping out several times to get the bucket trucks there. So I just wanted to mention that. So thank you. So we're ready to go on to question number 11. Thank you.
Thank you. What will be the actual height when the rooftop equipment is in place? And should that be calculated into the height request? So the rooftop equipment varies. Again, because this is a public building, we go out for procurement. So we need, at least 3 different equals. And so the final size of any roof equipment is not known until we get our bids back in. So that won't be until December or so. But it will vary between 2 feet and 8 feet. So you have equipment that's as small as small fans, and then you have the larger HVAC units that sit on top of the roof. The special permit per section 3.1.8 does not require us to include the height of those rooftop units, but you will see them in the shadow study. We do have them shown on the roofs as part of our modeling, and they are included in the shadow study, as well as I think they're included in almost all of the renderings that we've done. Do you have a virtual model to reference? So I've included the flyby in this presentation, and it's also been out on the website for quite a while as well. We'll show you that to you at the end. How tall is the greenish house across from Webster Street near the stairs? So I'm going to show that house to you in just a moment on the next slide. I believe I showed it in the previous slides on May 5th, but that house is approximately 30 feet in height. And again, this is, plus or minus. We didn't go and actually measure each house. And that's to the peak of that roof. The sidewalk from where that home hits the ground to where the sidewalk is about 5 feet, and that's at grade elevation 53. So when you look at the overall height of that house, if we're comparing overall elevations, that's about 88 feet, which we'll show you in just a moment. And that's grade elevation, that's not total height. What are the heights of the surrounding homes? And again, I'll show the same slides that I showed in that May presentation. were they exempt from special permit height approvals based on when they were built? I don't know. I can only assume that the zoning ordinance was different or something happened due to the age of the houses. I don't have the history behind those houses. So this is the home at the bottom, closer to the bottom of the street on Webster Street. So you can see that that's about 36 feet plus or minus in height from the driveway. And this is approximately elevation 50. If we move up the street to the greenhouse here, this is about elevation 50. What did I say, 53? And then we have about another 5 feet between the road and the base of the house here where this measurement is taken. And then to the peak of the roof is plus or minus 30 feet. I've also included these images, which I included in the previous elevation, presentation. The elevation of this home at the top of Webster Street on the corner of Webster and Friend is approximately 50 feet to the peak of the roof. And this is at grade elevation 60. And then way down at the bottom, this home is, this 4-story house is about 46 feet in height. And this is about the same size as our academic wing. Moving on to some building and site questions. We have a lot of site questions here, mostly about fill and grading. So the first one is, can you elaborate on the term sea level? So when we were out on the site, we were trying to describe what, when we start talking about grade elevations, and those numbers get a little confusing. So we just wanted to go take a step back and make sure that everybody knew what we were talking about here. When we talk about grade elevations, there's a datum line. It's sea level, the Atlantic Ocean's at like 0, and then as you go up in height, topographically, you're assigned an elevation. And if you look at these plans down here, this is about, what our plans look like if you were to look at them in plan. And this is what something would look like if you were to turn it into an elevation. So you would have low points and high points. The closer the lines are together, that means the steeper that slope is. So the further apart they are, the more gradual the slope is. So as you begin to look at the site plans that we have, you can begin to understand where things are steep and where they're a little bit more gradual. So here we are with our site plan, and this is the existing conditions. And what I want to show here is that you can see that things get a little bit steeper over here. You're at grade elevation 66 over here. You can see how steep it is. It's a little bit softer as you come down here, and you can see how flat the ball field is within this area. But you can also see that the ball field goes from grade 47 to 44 across the ball field. So this is important to remember when we start talking about why we're filling in. That's a difference of 3 feet right there. And then you can see that there's a slope here up to grade 52. And if you look across here, we're about 52 as well. So going down, going flat, and then back up. So from here to here is about the same elevation, even though it goes down to the bowl. And way down at the bottom of the parking lot down there, you're about 33. The finished floor elevation of the existing school is 45.15. So roughly about our average grade as we look across the site. Please stop me if you have any questions as we go through this. We're getting a little bit technical.
Councilors Holden and Pat, are you both okay? Okay, great, thank you.
We're going to move into some questions about the site, around the site. We'll come back to the site plan in just a moment. What is the height of the light post? I don't know. We haven't been able to confirm the heights of the light posts. On average, we think they're 60 or more. Having Brad go up in the bucket truck, I think he says they're more than 60 feet. What is the individual height of each pole around? We can't confirm those. We're not able to go out and measure each of those poles. And for reference only, what is the height of the Veterans School at the section where we're looking at the first pole to the left of the tent of the courtyard? So I'm going to show you where that pole is. And most areas around that school are about 12 to 15 feet in height from the existing grade. The gym is about 20 to 25 feet from that existing grade, and then drops off quickly as you head down towards the road area. So that pole that we were just referencing is right about here. And I believe that this corner here is about 12 to 15 feet above the finished grade. The red dots indicate the light poles. And where it says elevation 43, this is the grade elevation at the base of that pole. So this one here is at 43, it's kind of sitting in a hole. This one's at 46, and out here it's at 47.5 feet. So you can see that they're at different heights. Their grade elevation is at different locations, within the grade. So again, keep this in mind as we start talking about why we're filling the land. Where is the most northern part of the proposed building and what is its proposed height? I'm going to show you in the plan again. I'm going to overlay the new building on top of that site plan. And you'll see that the most northern part is about 20 feet northwest of the infield. And the height of the building in that location is 46 feet above finished grade, the finished grade of elevation 48. The existing grade in that area is about 46.5 to 47. Clarify location of the new planned new entrance versus the existing entrance. Again, we're going to go back to the plan in just a moment, and I'll show you where the existing entrance to the building is and where our new proposed entrance, which is the highest part of the building, is going to be located. Can you explain the zoning formula that determines the calculation of the average grade of 45.5? And does this represent how much grade is above sea level? So when we calculate the average grade, we take it right from that section 3.1.8, and we go around to every corner of the building. We determine what the grade is, the existing grade at that corner. We add up all our corners, and then we determine what the average grade is. And here we're at 45.5, which is again almost the same elevation of the finished floor of the existing school, just slightly inches higher. According to my understanding, the project, the proposed grade will be higher than the existing since fill will be added to the site. That's correct. And based on the recent topographical surveys, what is the existing grade elevation for the building? So going to the site, our finished building will be at grade elevation 48. And you can see where this building sits now and why we have to fill. We have to put the building on a flat site. And we're going from 47 down to 44 with a hole in the middle there at, over by that light post, where it dips over here. So you can begin to understand the reason why we're looking at the leveling out the site in this area. Again, here's that 20-foot dimension for the most northern part of the building. It's just outside of the infield. And here is the proposed new entrance to the building, and here's the existing entrance. And because this building sits at an angle, you can see it sits almost parallel to Webster Street as you're going up the street. So this line of the building, the front end of the building, is almost parallel to Webster Street here. How much ground improvement fill is necessary for the project to make the surface flat for the structure? And again, that depends on where you're standing. If you're standing way back at in the back infield area, closer to the 47 elevation, then you're only going to need a foot. And if you're standing where that light post is, in that little hole, because of the drainage area, you're going to need 5 feet. But generally across the site, you're looking at about 2.5 feet. Why are we putting so much fill in before we begin construction? And wouldn't we automatically make it less high a building if we didn't put so much fill? Again, we have to make the site level in order to make a level first floor of the building, to make level roads, to make level sidewalks, to create areas for proper drainage. We have to be able to manipulate the site a little bit to be able to make all of those things work properly. What are we filling in on average, and why do we have to fill it in at all? So again, several questions about the same fill. On average, we're filling at 2.5 feet. We're going from the 45.5 to the 48. And will we need to fill? Yes, because the site needs to be level. Without a level site, we would have a multi-levels on the first floor, which would create a much more expensive building we would need several steps, a lot of inflexibility within that kind of building. We need proper drainage, site drainage, we need proper road grading. And what we try to do when we're working with sites like this is to create a balance between the fill and what we're taking out and putting in. And so by doing that, we can reduce the cost of the site work that we need to do. And what would happen, sorry, question? Okay. What would happen if we just built the school in the existing ground level that we're standing on? Again, there's a 3-foot difference between one end of the building and the other. So we would not be able to do that. It would require multiple ramps and create very difficult transitions within the first floor of the building. So what I've done here is to just show you the grading across the footprint of the building. So that light post that I was just talking about that sits sort of in a drainage area, that dips down, and that area right there needs about 5 feet of fill. That is the small area right here. It's like 500 square feet. Up here in this corner here, you see that we come back up. We only need about 3 feet here. We need about 4 feet right about here in the middle, in this area here. And as you get closer out towards the ball field, of course, you're reducing the amount of grade that you need to fill because you're going from 47 to 48. So it's only a foot. Where is the bus entrance? We're going to show you that on a slide. What is the grade to the street on the hill at the bus drop off? And how does it compare to the existing handicap ramp? I'm going to show you that slide in just a moment, but the bus slope is between 6.5% and 8%. It kind of goes at a corner. And your ADA handicap ramps, if they meet ADA compliant ramps, are at 8.3%. So the bus driveway is just about the same slope as a ADA compliant ramp. Have we studied, has a study been done to determine the degree of slope on Webster Street? It's not applicable to the height, but yes, Webster Street grading is included in our site survey. So when you look at these survey maps, you can see that we actually take those grading lines right across the street. How much will the existing grade from Webster Street to the school decrease? So the area around the bus loop doesn't decrease. At the bottom of that hill, it's at 46, and it's going to remain at 46. We're adjusting the grading going up the hill, so it becomes a little bit steeper, and we need to create that steepness so we can make the bus loop less steep. I mean, the bus drive access less steep. And I'm going to show you that a little bit better in the next slide. What happens to the height at the base of the existing hill? And again, that just gets a little bit steeper at that base, but the base pushes back to allow for that bus circle. And is there a retaining wall? There's not a retaining wall right there at that immediate area. There is a retaining wall, and I'm going to show you that location. And that's been made to allow for the fire truck access around the side of the building. So there's your bus entrance here. As you can see how it goes down here with the new school laid out. This is the footprint of the existing school right here. As we begin to read these maps, it's important to know that the solid lines are new grade and the dashed lines are the existing grade. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. So this is a close-up of the bus loop. And when I said that it was between 6.5% to 8%. So on the outside, you can see that the lines are further apart. So it's a more gradual. And as you get closer to the inside of that loop, it gets a little bit steeper. So this is 8%. And on the outside of that, it's 6.5%. And again, going back to the handicap ramp, they are compliant ramps are about 8.3% slope. Over here, you can see the grade of Webster Street and how we've picked up the lines that go across Webster Street. And if you look between these lines here, that's about a 6-foot difference between this point in height, between this point and where that crosswalk is. And that's about a difference of 79 feet. So it's approximately the same slope as what our bus entrance is. This picture depicts the questioner asking what happens at the toe of the hill. So this 46 is the existing grade here. And it's also out here, this is also 46. And you can see that what we're doing is pushing that grade so that this is 46 and then creating this grade at 47. And then your hill gets a little bit steeper going all the way up. There was another question about the parking here, which I'm going to get into in just a moment. And then the blue line here indicates where that retaining wall is located. And this is done so that we could allow enough room for the fire trucks to access this area. You can see the dash line again is the existing grade, and we had to push that slightly up the hill to allow fire access across around to the back. So a question came up about why are we changing the parking spaces on Webster Street? And again, not applicable to the height, but we wanted to make sure that we answered everybody's questions. And so the parking along Webster Street is being adjusted to accommodate that steeper slope and to make it a safer access to the site. So here you see this is existing. Students will come down here, cross here. And as they're walking down this sidewalk, they're actually walking behind cars. So between the road and the parking, they're actually walking along here. Cars also have to back out onto Webster Street. Students will walk along here and then go down that hill. The way that we're changing this is to now bring that sidewalk so it's in front of the parking. It's a much more gradual slope. Cars are parallel parked, so they're not backing into the traffic. And this here actually protects the students. They're walking in front of the cars. They're not walking along the straight edge, and they'll be walking behind the guardrail. So a safer access for students, a safer exit for cars.
I'd like to just interrupt just for a second. Jonathan Pope, can you just tell members of the public to whom they should steer their questions to for matters that are unrelated to 3.1.6b that we're looking at?
Okay, we have on our website the ability for people to ask questions, and those can be answered publicly, you know, so that everybody gets the benefit of the question and the answer. But if they have trouble navigating that, they can send them directly to me, and it's my jpope@gloucesterschools.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
One other question that came up when we were walking on the site was, what about the people across from 128 who are way up on the hill? How far are they away from the building? So the property line, the house, from the house to our property line is about 296 feet. And then the building itself is about another 103 feet from the property line to that nearest point of the building. So that house up there on the hill, the closest house, is about 400 feet away from the proposed school building.
That's a little bit over a football field, correct?
Thank you. So we did get some questions about the building. How wide is the building? The overall length of the building is 337 feet. However, that building is broken into sections, and it's also broken into horizontal dividers so that it helps break down the scale of the building. So the sections are about 55 to 60 feet wide. So you have your academic wing, and then it sets back, and then you have another academic pod, and then you have the media center, and then the gymnasium, which is the widest part, which is 80 feet wide. I'll show that again to you in the elevations. Can you describe the height of the building in all sections and the 60-foot existing poles that you use as a frame of reference? So I'll show you a pole where it will be located, and then if you go out to the site, you can actually see all the different, the 46, the 48, and the 54 height elevations. And at that pole, you'll be able to judge where they would be on the screen. Where is the bus entrance, and at what height is the closest point of the building to the drop-off? So the bus entrance was shown in that previous slide, and I'll show it again in a rendering that we have. The closest building area is 46 feet, and that's the academic area. The media center is actually lower, so that's 40 feet. And so if you're looking at the bus loop, one will be on one side and the other on the other. And what is the height of the main entrance area? So the main entrance is under the canopy at 10 feet, but the height of that entrance clear story area is 54 feet from grade elevation 48, which will be our finished grade. And our height variance is 2.5 feet more than that. So that's, I'm sorry, height special permit, even though I'm doing it now. Our special permit request is for 56.5, which is from that lower grade area. What height is the light post behind home plate in relationship to the height of the first floor near the main entrance? So we haven't measured the pole, but you will see the markers on that pole when you get out there. And what is the significance of the lobby area being the highest point of the proposed building? And why does it need to be so high? So that lobby area, that clear story piece is provides access to the gymnasium, which is on the second floor, and to the media center. So it's already 2 stories high. And then in order to get daylight into that corridor, what we call the main street, the main corridor of the building, you have to go above the roof of the media center, which is adjacent to it. So that daylight is going to bring a lot of light into the heart of the building, into the center area. And in order to do that, it needs to be higher than that, the adjacent roof areas, and in order to get the sun at that angle. And also is a symbol of the entrance. It's a wayfinding. Here's the entrance, here's the main entrance. And it allows people to understand exactly where they need to go when they arrive on site.
Michelle, also just to add to that, in addition to the architectural reasons for, there's very much an educational reason for that, in the sense that you mentioned the daylighting, and that's something that we've learned over the years through many, many studies, how daylight, natural light coming to a school building through classrooms, that's why we see so much glass in the windows and bigger windows. And then also in the common areas, like you said, with the daylighting there, with the clear story, that light really actually affects the mood, the tone, the culture, and therefore the education of our students. So it's not only an architectural need, it's also an educational need.
Very good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent.
So here's the overview of the building areas, and you can see the academic area here. This is the roof area at 46, the media center at 40. This clear story is this area right here. So I've said it's 16 feet wide and 90 feet long. And it's just this strip here. And then adjacent to it is the gymnasium, which is 48 feet. And then there are some lower roofs at the back of the building and some horizontal lower roof and canopy areas at the front of the building, as well as, the kindergartens are lower as well. The light pole by home plate is located right here. So you can understand if you're standing at that light pole, the distance back to the building. So it's set further back from that light pole, and the measurement, this portion of the building is 46 feet high. And once you get out there on site, all the other markings are located on this pole as well. The rest of the building, again, this is at the bus loop. So adjacent to the bus loop, you have the 46-foot high academic wing and the 40-foot high media and administration area. And again, this is showing or depicting what I had spoken about before, where the building is broken into sections. So it's not 337 feet long, just one wall. It moves in and out, and it has different levels. So, here's the kindergarten wing, and then the rest of the building sits behind that. And then you have areas such as this one where the horizontal band helps to bring the scale of that building down. 50-foot high clear story is here. And again, it sets back from the entrance. The entrance, you're underneath the canopy, about 10 feet underneath that canopy. And then the clear story pops out from behind that. And then the gymnasium from grade to the roof is 48 feet. There was one question that came in later, which said, because the view is part of the height permit, have we identified how much of the view will be lost because the butters living on the higher end of Webster Street will no longer see the tree line that is currently seen from their home. So this image here is taken at that intersection between Friend and Webster Street, right next to where the blue house is located there. And the view is taken at approximately 12 feet in the air. So if you were looking out this window here, this would be about your view going across that site. And again, just relationship of the building to the highest point on the hill there. The elevation of that building at grade level 60 and a 50-foot high building. And then our building over here at elevation 48, which is the finished grade. The shadow study. So it was requested that we do both the longest day and the shortest day for the shadow study. So what we did was both a plan view and an elevation view of both days. So there's 4 shadow studies here that we're going to look at. The first one takes place on December. I'm sorry.
I'd just like to pause for a second.
Oh, sure.
For 2 reasons. I want to just mention the people that are here as attendees because they requested this in the past. We have Denise Pascucci, Louise Palazzola, Patty Amaral, Pam Steele, Patty Page, Ben Blanchard, Marianne Boucher, Larry Maver, Brooke Gray, Mary Doan, Louise Laicono, Kathy Clancy, school committee, and Kelly Barcleone. About 6 or 7 of those folks have been to at least one of the site visits, which is great to see. So I wanted to just mention that. And Councilors Holgram and Pett, do you have any questions about the questions at this point that have come up? Go ahead, Council Holgram.
Yes, one question I want to thank Jonathan Pope because that question was mine that he answered. And I've actually received a follow-up request for more information on that, where exactly you got those numbers. I'm assuming off the cuff that it has to do with the cost of the school and the cost of the current swing space. And in your experience, which by now is pretty extensive, I can certainly imagine that these numbers are very real. But I didn't know if you could corroborate or if you could possibly even follow up with me in an email and I can forward that information to the constituent.
Yes, I can do that. We have backup data on all of those numbers, and we have a number of other possibilities of that include delay as well as stoppage. So I can provide that with you, Jennifer. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council Pett, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just not a question per se, a comment. I want to thank both Brad and Michelle for a very, very detailed response to each and every question that's been brought forth, not just by us or other counselors, but by abutters and other members of the community who have joined in. We've tried to be as inclusive as we can. And I wanted to thank you for this very, very detailed response and presentation. And at another point, I'm sure when you're finished, you'll show everyone where they can go ahead and find all this data on the website and continue the updated data. But thank you so much.
I agree, Councilor Pett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I third that. And as the scribe for 5 of the 6 sessions, Council Holgram scribed for one of them, the question just kept coming, and we appreciate the fact that you addressed all of them. So thank you very much. So let's continue. We'll go to the next section, which is the shadow study. So
yes. So the shadow, so in the PDF that I sent you, I think these showed up as just black. When we post this on the website, you'll be able to run the shadow study yourselves because it will be a PowerPoint presentation. So the request was to do the 2 days, the longest day and the shortest day. We went from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. And because we have to run this, we have to give it some sort of time. We did 1 second equals an hour. So as we're going to hit play here, and you'll see as the sun comes up, moves across, and then sets at 9 o'clock. And then, of course, in the wintertime, it gets darker earlier. So here's December.
Which date?
This is December
Is that
21st.
December 21st?
Yes.
Okay.
So what you're seeing there is the shadows of the houses. I can do it again. The shadows of the building starts, infinitely long, and then the shadows move across. You see the houses on Webster Street come across, and then all the shadows heading back up towards the highway and then back around.
Let me just run it one more time. Couple more.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to be watching. So
It is. If
we should be
you want to
looking,
yell stop, I'd be happy to stop too.
so we should be looking really at the building, not the shadows that are being cast by all the houses around. Is that correct? I mean, what,
Yeah, so,
so much to look at right now. This is kind of
right. So
very,
I've stopped it here at, so this would be about 9 o'clock in the morning. So this is about 4 seconds, 5 seconds into, so about 9:30 in the morning. You can see the shadows of the houses are short, the building are going out towards the back, towards the
Okay.
highway as it moves around. Midday, coming back around, shadows get longer, and it gets dark early in the winter. And the next, whoops, sorry, didn't mean to hit it twice. Hang on. In the next, so this is the same day, December 21st, only this is in elevation. And again, I'll run it, I'll stop it as it gets to about, as the sun, whoops, sorry. Sun comes up, you can see the shadows moving around. Sorry, too many clicking. I'll let it run once.
Yeah.
There we go. Yep. It's kind of fun to watch.
so Michelle, I've got a question for you. It appears that some of the equipment on the top of the academic wing are simulated in this. So is that correct in terms of the
Yes.
shadow? So there's actual representation of what is on the roof, even though we don't have to calculate that for the height. Okay, so the
Yep.
shadow study is showing that equipment.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And you can see that it sits, we try to get it so that it sits, in the middle of the roof area so that you're not going to see it quite as much from the edge. And it helps us when we're distributing the HVAC. So here on the academic wing, we try to get it towards the center.
Yeah.
And in this area here, we actually rotated it so that you'd see the short end and not the long end, if you do see that. So I'll run
Okay.
this one more time and then we'll go to June.
So when you're looking at this in the December timeframe, you can see that there's really no shadow that's impacting the neighbors across the street, okay, on Webster Street.
This is June, and again, we're starting at 5 a.m. So you can already see that it's a little bit brighter than it was at 5 a.m. December. And again, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., 1 second equals an hour in real time. And I'll run it quickly the first time and then I'll slow it down the next time. It's about noon right there. You can tell when the shadows almost disappear. And we'll go again, stopping it occasionally. So right about here, we're at 6 o'clock in the morning. Running around. The shadows come back, or you're at high noon, moving on to afternoon, and then the shadows start coming back. And they finish on the long end, again, heading out towards the highway. And then in elevation, again, a little bit brighter than it was at 5 a.m. in December.
Okay, Michelle, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so June 21st is the longest day of the year, and December 21st is the shortest. So those are the most extensive or the least extensive shadows. And
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong, in looking through the shadow study, none of the abutters are actually shadowed. I think some of the abutters' houses may at one point in December have, thrown something on the school itself. But again, we're looking at the school, what the school is creating. And I did not see the school at either time frame of the year at any time actually impacting any of the abutters. Am I correct?
So Councillor Pat, we've examined this a number of times, right? Go back and watch the video. And I guess when we look at it, if you stopped at, perhaps at like 5:30-ish, there might be a little bit of shadow, right, that's being thrown. I would say, at the stoop perhaps of the abutters, but by 6 o'clock in the morning, right, that's gone.
Yeah,
Right.
this is about 5, this is just before 6 o'clock in the morning. So you can see the
Thank you.
shadows are right here at the edge.
Thank you.
And then last, I wanted to show the model that we have, which is, we call it a flyby. And again, this is also on the website in a couple of different locations. So this will take you all the way around the school. That's all I have.
I think we have a slide about the kind of directly on the website. Do we or no?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Project website. All right. So how to get to the project website? You type in E.G. Vets Building Gloucester Schools, or I've actually gotten there just by typing East Gloucester Veterans School Building Project. And you'll come up to this website here, this web page here. Where you want to go is under key documents over here. But the rest of this page has lots of information about upcoming events, meetings, recent news, any updates that we have, including the flybys that we have. Once you hit the key documents, it will bring you to this page here. So what you'll find is MSBA submissions. So these are done on a timely manner based on the schedule that we have. And what you see here, like this was the last submission that we made, which was the design development. And again, sometime in mid-July, you'll see 60% construction documents, and that will be posted here. And then over here on this side would be all of your reports and studies. And most of these are just compiled here. They're part of all the documents that go to the MSBA, but they've been pulled out for easier access. Any questions about that?
Counselors? Nope.
Nope. Once
you.
you get into the document, you'll also see things are designed by the drawings, what the binder, which is a lot of narrative information, and then specifications if anybody chooses to read those. And that's all I have.
Okay, so counselors. Additional questions? Counselor Pat?
Yes, just a quick question. It has nothing to do with height, but since there was a request and Councilor Holmgren went through, translating, et cetera, for our neighbors and abutters, I'm wondering, did any questions come back in either in Spanish or in, Portuguese or, Italian or anything else? Did anything come back that way? Or did hopefully other people, say like Patty or Denise or someone, were able to, interpret for them? I'm just wondering if, whether Jen or Val, if you could answer that question for us.
I saw nothing. Joanne Sinos, City Clerk, did you see any questions come in? Because I believe that we received all the questions that have come in, and as well as not just questions, but letter. Joanne Sinos or Sherry, our Assistant Clerk of Committees, did you see anything come in a different language?
Council Gilman, as far as I know, nothing was received in a different language.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, is it possible, I'm going to throw out just a quick question for you. On one of your presentations, you went through very specifically the 3 points of 3.1.6b. Consistent with neighborhood character, will not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood because of obstruction of view, overshadowing of other properties, and impairment of utilities or adverse impacts. Is it possible for you to shoot that up for us, just to kind of, do you have that at your fingertips by any chance?
Give me a minute. I think I can bring it up quickly.
Okay, thank you. Council Holgram.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Gilman. I'm so glad you brought that up because I actually have a question pertaining to that, but I will wait for Michelle to bring it up.
Great. And also while we're waiting for Michelle to bring it up, I wanted to bring up one thing that was important because I want to be really clear to the public. Patty, I'm glad that you're still on the call, Patty Amaral. So on May 18th, Patty had sent an email and she was addressing the 6 criteria under 1.8.3.
Right.
And specifically that criteria includes social, economic, and community needs that will be served by the proposed use. B is traffic flow and safety. C is adequacy of utilities and other public services. D is neighborhood character and social structure. And E is qualities of the natural environment. And F is potential fiscal impact. And she had sent to Council Holgram, Pett, and I a very detailed email highlighting those 6 components. And I responded to Patty pretty much immediately because it was kind of I wanted her to be clear that that we didn't have the standards to be applied, were not in front of us, rather it was height. And then I followed that with a quoting 3.1.6b in that document at length and in the full zoning ordinance. And I just wanted to be clear that we understand on the City Council what 3.1.6b is. And it has some of those components of 1.8.3, but 1.8.3 is not applicable, applicable, you know what I'm trying to say, to a height special counsel permit. And when you look at what is listed on our special counsel permit, it is not 1.8.3. 1.8.3 is for use. And so that was my comment. I was not just only thinking of height because I cited 3.1.6b and all the parameters of that in my response. And I just want to be clear. And actually, Patty, your comment was a good one, because it precipitated us on the city council to modify the special counsel permit form, because there's really no need for an applicant to fill out 1.8.3 when we are doing 3.1.6b. And so Bill Sanborn came up with a comment to write on the our special counsel permit forms that the clerk's office gives out. And it basically says that if you're doing a 3.1.6b, you don't have to fill out 1.8.3. So it's kind of a lot of zoning language here, a lot of numbers, but I just wanted to be clear for the record in terms of what I meant when I said it was for height. And when we say height, it's for the whole 3.1.6b, that now if Michelle can put her slides up, I hope you can go through what those are. Did you happen to find them, Michelle? You're muted. Great, thank you.
Okay, so so this is 3.1.6 B. This is the criteria for B.
Mhm.
And in this presentation, we took you through each of these steps, starting first with the payment or impairment of utilities. So right now, all the utilities that enter this site, the only overhead ones that would be affected by height are these electrical wires, all of which would be removed as part of this building project because they feed either the existing light poles or the school itself. And then if we went to the overshadowing, I think we just went through that overshadowing of property, so I'll skip that for a moment. Substantially detrimental to the views. So we talked about the view of the school, the distance of the existing school being only 30 feet from the sidewalk, and then the new school being increased to 140 feet from the sidewalk, so setting back and setting lower into the site. The view of the building, and then consistent with the neighborhood character. And this is where we cited our building heights and the relevant neighborhood buildings within that were consistent with those heights. Was there something else there that
I do have
you
one.
had remembered that you wanted to see?
Councilor Holden?
Yes, and I mean, maybe this question is redundant because the two of you pretty much nailed it. My question also stems from the email that Patty had sent, and I wanted to make sure by asking, does it stand to reason that the modern building envelope, modern electrical fixtures, et cetera, would provide less of a burden on the neighborhood's surrounding physical infrastructure than what is there now? But it looks like, Michelle, you've addressed that pretty much, at least as far as the exterior infrastructure. But I mean, considering that the builder, you'd have to apply all of the existing stretch codes, the most modern building codes, et cetera, to make the building as energy efficient as possible. I think that my question has probably been answered. Thank you.
This building is, we're seeking LEED Gold certification. So this building will be energy efficient and sustainable.
Just like West Parish. I know West Parish is LEED certified as well.
It is, and over the course of a few years, the LEED certification, West Parish is gold as well. But that level to get to gold has increased, and this building will get there as well. So it will be even more sustainable.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Council Pett, do you have any questions? Okay, I'm going to ask if we can get rid of the screen. Thank you, Michelle, for finding that for us, because it's been since May 5th, I think, since we went over that, and I thought that would be a good way to kind of conclude this lengthy process of looking at the height. So are there any questions from either extra city councilor that is on the call that we didn't cover, Scott Memard and Councilor O'Hara?
No, thank you very much for the presentation, Michelle.
Councilor O'Hara, do you have any questions that we didn't cover?
Not at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members of the public, we will take your questions, but please, I need you to be absolutely clear that this is not the public hearing. And our public hearing is, I believe, Joanne, is, if Steve has approved it, is for next Tuesday, June 8th. Joanne, can you give me a thumbs up that that is correct?
That is correct. It's on for Tuesday, June 8th.
Okay, thank you. So I will, this is questions only on 3.1.6B. And councilors, I'll ask that if we start to get into deliberations now, we're going to have to cut you off. And we don't want to do that because we're trying to be really fair, but it's just not something, this is not the public hearing. So this is questions only if something that you don't feel, clarification of something you heard today, or a question that wasn't covered relative to 3.1.6B, which we all know exactly what we're talking about now. So I will take a question from Pamela Steele. Will you introduce yourself and in your address and ask your question?
I've changed my mind about asking a question tonight, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from anyone else that is on the call? Ben Blanchard, welcome. And I understand I've gotten to know you because you've attended a couple of the site visits. So would you introduce yourself in your, I know where you live, but you need to tell everybody else where you live. So introduce yourself. That would be great.
Hi, I'm Ben Blanchard and I'm at 14 Webster Street, right across the street. My question is, you are voting for the height. So if you all say yes, you're saying yes, we're going to grant this special permit so that you can have this, you can go above the 30 feet kind of zoning. So I know that you're basing it on consistent with the neighborhood character. And my concern is that—
Ben, you're starting to deliberate. I'm really sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my question—
Your opinion about neighborhood character. So ask,
okay.
help us by asking a question so we can hear and get answers.
My question just came to me, so I was trying to formulate it. Sorry.
Okay, great.
So anyway, the height the height of the surrounding buildings. Oh geez, I don't know. I guess you're also, you have to determine if this height is consistent. I mean, the adverse impacts is also that's kind of a wide open question. The adverse impacts. That's my question is adverse impacts. The height could affect like the impact the neighborhood with because it's so massive, basically. And is that what it means by the adverse impacts, like the not the socioeconomic, but the the psychological thing about the kids, and it's just such a big thing? No. Okay.
that's not my understanding of what that is.
Wait,
Michelle,
what is
Brad,
that? Yeah,
do you have any comments to that, or Council Holgram, Council Pat? I'm not understanding
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
this. What are the socio,
I'm sorry, what are other adverse impacts? What is that? What does that cover? Do you know, like, what is that? Why is that in there? It says that, is it consistent with the neighborhood character or other adverse impacts of the neighborhood?
This seems like it could go down a fairly speculative road fairly quickly. And I appreciate your concerns, Ben, and you've voiced them many, many times. And I want to thank you for calling in and speaking up. I just, I don't know exactly what you're getting at. And I don't want us to get too far into the weeds here.
No, I understand. I understand. That's not my intention. It just seemed unclear to me what that means, because you're, and I guess my question is about the height. Is the buildings in the neighborhood are that tall? Some of the neighborhood buildings are consistent with that height, but they're not consistent with the width. So that it's just the impact of that, the width, because all the houses around it are not,
okay,
266 feet long. So I'm just saying that the height is really impacted by the width of it, because the width of that height. Does that make sense?
but Ben, I guess I would ask that you, that be part of what you're going to talk about at the public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think that it's getting to be
you're
deliberation. as
Okay,
to-
I understand. Okay.
And Ben, let me just, because I'm so proud of you for participating in this process. So let me explain one more thing, okay?
Okay, sure, certainly.
Only 5 of the city councilors are here tonight. There are
Okay.
4 more, okay? It
Yes.
takes 6 of us to approve a special council permit. So, and this is not an advertised public hearing. So we need to be fair to our councilors that are not here before they make their decision. And that's why we ask the public to wait until that opportunity for you to be speaking.
I understand. That clears it up a lot. I really appreciate that. Okay.
And I appreciate you being part of this process. So
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you very much, and no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Louise Pelazzola, you had your hand up. So would you introduce yourself and your address? And remember that we're only asking questions.
Yes, Louise Palazzola, 57 Western Avenue, Gloucester, Mass. When you did the showing of the shadowing, 25 Webster Street, I kept watching for 25 Webster Street, and it felt like a cloud was over it. You couldn't see the building. Was I wrong? That's my sister-in-law's house, 25 Webster Street. And of course, the shadowing goes around, and she did it several times. So I didn't know if I was missing something, or is there shadowing? I couldn't really tell. It was black that was supposed to be shadowing. Was that the yellowish color that was going by? And then again, on 16 Webster Street, she also owns that house. And that one I could see a little bit more clearer, which I still wasn't sure about the shadowing on either of those properties. It seemed like 25 Webster Street had quite a bit of shadowing, and I may be wrong. Could you tell me how that?
For the purpose of our time, Louise, would you be able to look at the Zoom call tomorrow and and look really carefully, maybe with your sister? And if you have a question, then may I put you in touch with Michelle to look at it with her? Is that possible?
Thank you.
I think we can maybe answer a little bit of that question right now, which is you really should be looking at the black, right? The shadows that are being cast are portrayed by the black, and you can see them actually moving, okay, when you just let the video run. And I think that you'll see, in the December timeframe, there's nothing that even comes close to any of the houses on the other side of Webster Street. And as I said earlier, right, I think there's a very short period in the morning on June, which is the longest day. And I would say, it's a little hard to tell, but, it might hit the front, of your foundation or something like that, but very negligible, and at best for probably about a half an hour, if
And
that.
that was,
That's it.
and correct me if
That's before
it's
6
wrong,
a.m.
Brad, but I think that was on June 21st, the longest day. That was between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. By 6 o'clock in the morning, it was off of any of the abutters properties totally.
That is correct.
Thank
So,
you.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the house on the same side of the street more than anything else, the little yellowish house.
No impact there.
Thank you, Louise. Appreciate it. Next question is from LJ. LJ, would you come on board and introduce yourself and your address and ask your question?
Thanks, Val. It's Lisa Rigsby, and I live on 3 Taylor Court. And this is a lot to digest, certainly geometry this late at night. So I thank you all for paying attention. My question is the opposite of shadowing. It's about light from the large structure and how it impacts the neighborhood. I drove by Matos Field last night and was so happy to see the community playing ball, and the lights were still on in the field when I came home. And I'm wondering about, with the large building, how the actual lighting impacts the building, and also of the building, but also of the pole lighting impacts the neighborhood in the shorter days where lighting is less, and how it also impacts the environment as far as wildlife and birds, etc., in the area that are used to, the habitat, the existing habitat. Thank you. I hope my question is clear.
Michelle or Brad, do you want to take a crack at that question?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that. So, so there's a couple of things here, right? As compared to the existing school, as was discussed earlier, the existing school is much closer, right, to Webster Street, whereas ours is set back. So necessarily, right, if you have lights that are going to be closer to abutters, right, they're going to be more impactful. Secondly, right, the school will have operational control, okay, after school hours on how they want to operate the building with respect to lighting, with respect to site lighting, right? All site lights will have cutoffs on those, which is intended to go and minimize the amount of light trespass off the site. In fact, as part of the LEED requirements, right, we will have no light trespass allowed. And that doesn't mean that you won't be able to see lights, but it means that the light cutoffs are not allowing those to be directly transferred over the property line. And then finally, right, we are trying to adhere to the dark sky provisions of LEED, which is to minimize, after certain operational hours, the amount of lights that would be on. Obviously, we need to be able to maintain, right, appropriate levels of safety in parking lots, on walkways, et cetera, right, as a public building. And for after school events, that would be modified, right, as appropriate. And hopefully that addresses your question.
Thank you. Some of the language I don't necessarily understand as a layperson, but if I understood you correctly, and I do understand the night sky from working on the Gloucester Crossing project, thank you. But are you saying that the lighting will not surpass the boundaries of the Webster Street area, during or beyond operational hours? I'm just a little unclear about that, like, the building is so much taller. And to me, when we look at the shadows, you've done projections on how the light travels during different times of the year, but I don't see anything about how light travels in that same period. And I'm sorry if I didn't understand your language.
No, I mean, it's a fair question. It's a little difficult to interpret, right? But what I'm suggesting is we'll kind of keep it on the outside just for the time being for a second. If we have a light pole, a site light pole, right, there will actually be a deflector shield on that, which is relatively common practice nowadays, to be able to keep the light focused on where it's intended to go, which is essentially downward, or to be able to light up a sidewalk and not just have that open, right, so that it can go anywhere. That doesn't mean you would, if you were standing across the street, that you wouldn't be able to see it, but the direct light, right, is something that's basically has a shield, for lack of a better term. With respect to, interior of the building, right, the interior of the building, for the most part, the classroom wings, other than, required safety type lighting in stairwells, right, we would expect not really to be on at night unless somebody happens to be working late. In public areas, such as the main lobby or the gymnasium, those areas obviously are going to be lit for those types of events. And I don't think there's anything prescribed that would go and say, this is what it's going to look like from the outside. I think Michelle had a rendering where the lights were on in the gym. So, you could get a sense of what that would look like. But again, to a large extent, what we're trying to focus on this evening is height. And, we've done the best job that we think that we can to address the questions that have been presented. And, we're attempting to, in good faith and honestly address the question that you brought up here tonight with respect to lighting operationally.
Thank you, Brad.
Have you done any sort of events like snow emergencies? I mean, God forbid we have another snowmageddon, but what would happen in that kind of event?
Council Holgram?
I'm sorry, Lisa, these questions are really good, but I think that we're going off track a little bit here through the chair. I don't know how you feel, but I think that they're certainly valid questions, but we're voting on the building height tonight.
But it's specific, those are specific questions related to the height of the building and the height of the site lights as they affect the neighborhood.
Snow emergencies? I'm sorry, I guess I don't
understand. Yeah, you don't live in our neighborhood, so snow emergencies are a big deal to us for many reasons.
Okay.
So, Lisa, I'm inclined to agree with Council Holgram. So I think that, this is not one of the criteria that is in front of us as part of 3.1.6B. And this is something that next week at the public hearing, you can certainly speak of your concerns. So,
okay, thank you so much. I will bring them up next week.
Okay,
I appreciate your time and listening. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, Mary Ann Boucher, would you introduce yourself in your address and ask your question?
Thank you, Mary Ann Albert Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. In the shadowing, I noticed that you could not see the homes to the right of the existing parking lot now, which, the 4-story building or the house next to that. How will the shadowing impact those homes? And also in regards to lighting, as Brad was talking about, I'm curious to know how many light posts there will be on the grounds itself and how tall will those light posts be? Well, we're talking about height. We're talking about height.
I'm not understanding. They've showed us every angle of the building and every corner.
Well, you couldn't see the shadowing down in the right-hand section where the existing parking lot is now. So I'm wondering where the shadow goes in the late afternoon. It looks like it goes towards the bottom of Webster Street to the four-story building there and the home next to it, which sits on Easton Avenue. So that is in regards to height.
Council Holcomb has her hand raised. Go ahead,
Sure.
Councilor.
I would, Madam Chair, you had suggested to Louise Palazola that in the interest of time, she review the Zoom. Would it be appropriate to also ask the same of Mary Ann?
I think that that's fair. Mary Ann, if you look more closely tomorrow, when you look at the Zoom and you see it, and you feel like you have a follow-up question, we will put you in touch with Michelle or Brad. Is that fair, Michelle and Brad? Okay, great. Thank you. And then the final person is Kelly Braccioni, and Kelly was at the site visit on May 27th, and a lot of these questions were yours, Kelly. So would you introduce yourself and your street? And
Yep,
ask-
my name's Kelly Brancleone. I'm 18A Calder Street. So I guess my question refers back to one of the renderings that was shown in one of Michelle's presentations. It keeps popping up in social media, and I'm just a bit confused. They're showing elevation 106 and 110 as reference, and it's kind of showing a comparison of the future building height to the neighborhood house. I think we talked about, was it 14 Webster Street? So I'm wondering if she could pull that up. Just, I'm not sure if it's perspective or if it's inaccuracies in the presentation. I just don't quite understand how the elevation 106 and 110 are being presented.
I actually think it's elevation 102 and 110. And to answer,
Okay.
it's not perspective, it's actually in section, which is basically a direct cut right through that site to be able to go and show the relationship between the building across the street
Okay.
and the height of the proposed building.
Is it possible to pull that up on the screen?
Through the chair?
Michelle, is that going to take a long time to get that pulled up?
No, just give me 1 minute.
Okay. I guess what I'm kind of getting at is that the information pertaining to the house on Webster Street, I'm wondering how certain are we about the elevation of the peak and the eave of that house? I know that this information, this building is outside of the contract, so I'm assuming that there haven't been any surveys done to provide the information there. And then I'm assuming that the building height wasn't necessarily verified. So what I'd like to know is if we're out there advertising that the height of the building is going to be relatively comparable to the eave height on that house, I'd like to know whether or not that is an accurate statement, an estimated statement, or where the information came from, because I think it's really important for people to understand that and look at it as a reference. I know the light poles are one thing, but this house is not part of your contract. And I'd really like to know, is this information verified, and can we really use it as a reference?
Michelle, Brad, I mean.
So that go ahead, Michelle.
All of our heights say plus or minus, because we haven't actually gone out and measured that. And we've been very clear about that, I think, in all our presentations. But what we can do is we know exactly what the grade is at the base of that house. We know that it's 60 feet in elevation. We know that the grade where we're building is going to be 48 when at finished grade. We know that our building at its highest point is going to be 54 feet off of that 48. And we know just by looking at the size of that house, we can come pretty close to estimating how tall that house is based on floor to floor heights, the size of the doors, the difference between the clapboards. I mean, we actually spent some time looking very closely at that. Maybe we're off by a foot or two, but that's why it says plus or minus. So we know that we're pretty close. We also know that when you're looking in perspective, that if the house is up at 60 and we're down at 48 and they're the same size, it's going to be lower than that. So that's what we're looking at, is just the comparison between, the relative comparison between where that house sits, where our proposed building sits, and where those heights will be with each other. So
Okay.
all of this is a relative comparison.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, so I think we've exhausted questions, and I can't say enough about the detail that we have gone through to make sure that all these questions are thoroughly answered. So much appreciated. So counselors, unless you have any more questions of the applicant on this matter that's in front of us, I'm ready to make a motion. And then
I
we
have
can
the motion
discuss it.
template. If you would like me to make the motion, I can.
That would be great. Please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I move that the Planning and Development Committee vote to recommend that the City Council grant to the City of Gloucester School Department a special council permit SCP 2021-002 for the property located at Webster Street, number 11, Assessors Map 47, Lot 13 in the R20 district, pursuant to Gloucester zoning ordinance section 1.10.1 and 3.1.6b, building heights in excess of 35 feet for the new East Gloucester Veterans Memorial School to be 56.5 feet for a total height increase of 21.5 feet over 35 feet. This permit is made on the basis of the plans and elevations dated March 30th, 2021, and submitted to the city clerk on April 26th, 2021, entitled Overall Exterior Elevations, drawn by Doran Whittier Architects, Inc., 260 Merrimack Street, Newburyport, Mass. Subject to new information and/or debate that results from the public hearing, this special council permit is deemed to be in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. And I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Holgram, and it's seconded by Councilor Pett. So councilors, I'd like to go through the criteria and have a conversation about it, and then we will go on to a roll call vote. So the first is any comments about if this is consistent with neighborhood character, because what we have in front of us is building heights in excess of 35 feet may be authorized by special permit issued by the City Council. Said permit and allowable height is one consistent with neighborhood character. Any comments about that? Council Pett?
Yeah, I would just like to say that obviously this is a larger building, but again, I think the presentations have shown that whether it be buildings lower down on Webster Street near Eastern Avenue or across the street on Webster Street going up to Friend Street and further up on Webster Street on each side, that this building, even though it's taller, I think it does fit in with the neighborhood character, and I don't see that it's going to have an effect on, again, the shadowing or any of the other parts of it. But I think within the neighborhood character, it fits.
Okay, thank you. Council Holgram?
I agree with Councilor Pett. I don't have anything further to add at this time.
Okay, and I concur. And then the next is will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood because of obstruction of view. Any comments about that? Council Holgram?
It is a larger building and height-wise than the one that is currently there. However, the shadow study clearly shows that none of the abutting buildings are overshadowed except for perhaps a couple of the neighbors at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning on June 21st. And I will add, I know that there's been a lot of talk about the marina and why we voted against the marina. And it's not the same. Every special council permit stands on its own. And we are voting on a clear story, which is a small part of a larger building. The marina, just FYI, the entire roof line was 55 feet or whatever it was, not just one part of the building. So I will make that comment.
Okay. Council Pat, any comments
Yep.
on shadowing?
Again, I believe we do have to sit that this is an individual permit application, and we need to base all our decisions on this. I don't think the obstruction of views, I think the study showed that if you were on the western side of Webster Street at any of these houses, and if you were inside the houses at the at the first floor level, you could see over the top of the school to all the way across to the other side of 128. You may have lost some view from there. And even people that had said that, they were up way up above, up on Sadler Street or something, were losing, views of distant views of the ocean. I think every place you go, that happens, whether it be because a private individual has applied to put a building that's going to block your view or something else. But I don't think that any part of this building substantially will obstruct any views and will do any overshadowing at any point. And I think the studies will show that. The study showed, I would ask that the people that question the shadowing look at the June 21st date. That's the longest day. And remember that the sun goes from east to west. It doesn't go from north to south. So sometimes you might question where things are going, but I believe it does not substantially obstruct any views or do any overshadowing.
And I will add, in terms of those two parameters, that the proposed building is going to be located in the center of the site, with the closest neighbor to the proposed building approximately 75 feet to the property line and approximately 100 feet to the neighboring building. And the roof lines of the proposed building and the closest neighboring building were approximately the same height. The highest point of the proposed building, the clear story, which we now said is calculated at 56.5, is approximately 155 feet from the nearest neighbor, with the roof line at the highest point of the proposed building at 54 feet, being 4 feet higher than that closest neighbor. So those are all important factors in terms of these two parameters. And I think I totally appreciated the more detailed shadowing study that Councilor Pat and Councilor Holmgren requested, because I think it answered a lot of the questions that we weren't that clear of when we first saw the shadow studying. So we appreciate that you went through the detail of providing us with that information. Thank you. The next issue is the impairment of utilities or other adverse impacts. Any comments on that, councilors?
It looks as though the utilities will be improved from the application, and also just from, again, our conversation about the building being LEED certified.
Council Pat?
Yes, I would agree with that comment, that the new building will not have some of the utility poles coming in. Everything will be clear. And again, in order to get LEED certified, many of these different things, from even questions that did come up that don't relate to this evening, say lighting or something else. Again, utility wise, this, in order to be LEED certified, is going to have to be a significant improvement over what's there currently now.
Thank you, Councilor. And I will just add that all the utilities will be removed with new services, and there are no utility easements. So I think that those are really, it's good for the neighborhood. So anyway, so I think that that concludes our discussion as a group. Do you have anything else to add, Council Holgram and Council Pat?
No,
Okay.
thank you all.
So we have we've made a motion, we have a seconded, and we'd like to do a roll call vote. And if you'd like to add in terms of why you're voting the way you are, please do. So we'll start with Council Holgram.
Yes, and I would just like to thank everyone, participants, presenters. This has been a lot of hard work. There's been a lot of heartache, and I do appreciate everyone's point of view. I feel very strongly that we do need a school in this area, and the public voted in favor of it, and I am in favor of this height exception.
Thank you, Councilor. Council Pat.
Yes. Also, I want to thank not only Chairman Pope and the building committee and Superintendent Lummis, but I want to thank the entire team of Dora and Whittier for their detailed response to the questions that are very much appreciated. Even though it's not something required for us to, do in this hearing. This is for us, for the counselors. But I'm glad we were able to include people from all over the city and abutters, and ask questions and answer questions. And obviously, regardless of our vote here this evening, there will be a public hearing where people will be able to make further commentary, etc. But I think it's so important to move forward with this school. There are issues, and no matter where you are throughout the city, if you want to build a school, we absolutely need some new schools in our kids' future is there, and I'm going to support this.
Great, thank you. And I too will be voting in favor of this for the things that Council Holgram and Pat have mentioned. I think we have done an incredibly detailed job of looking at the height, multiple site visits, tons of questions. I know more about sea level and elevation than I think I ever wanted to know about, and it makes us better city councilors as a result. So very much appreciated. The vote is 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Are you, wait, don't you have to actually call the roll call vote?
Oh, I did.
I thought you said we were, speaking. We
okay.
said we were going to support
Okay.
it. I didn't know we actually
kind of called each person's name, but if we can formally do another roll call. It's fine, Councilor. Council Holgram.
Yes.
Council Pat.
Yes.
Council Gilman. Yes. The yeses have it. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. So the public hearing is next Tuesday. And for folks that are opposed, someone should talk to Council LeBlanc and find out how much time you'll have to do a presentation at the public hearing. And then everyone is typically allotted 3 minutes to speak in either in favor or opposed. But it's not a bad thing to get the person that's going to present, if you choose to do it that way, to contact Council President LeBlanc. I think thank you all for your participation, and unless there's any more issues, Councilors Holgram and Pat, I'm ready to move on to the next order of business. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, the next order of business, and I see Joel poking his head back, and thank you for sticking with us. Next order of business, special council permit 2021-003, Rogers Street, number 9, map 7, lot 15, GZO, section 2.3.49. restaurant with outdoor seating or with takeout constituting more than 20% of total business or both in the MI district. So Joel, take it away, introduce yourself and tell us about this project.
No problem. Let me just throw the presentation up for everybody. Okay, great. So for the record, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street here in Gloucester. I am here on behalf of Neil Maver, who is the applicant, and in a technical capacity, I'm here also on behalf of Gary Doyon, trustee owner of the property itself. And I'm here to present to you a request for a special permit, as the chair mentioned, to allow Neil to renovate the former Cape Ann Brew Pub space into a new restaurant to be entitled Oak to Ember. And I will take you briefly through the request and the standards to be applied, and then I'll turn it back over to you. So as you've mentioned, the particular permit we're looking for is a restaurant with outdoor seating constituting more than 20% of total business. For anyone who ever enjoyed the Brew Pub, you know there's that really awesome deck out in the back, and Neil is hoping to continue its use in relation to the proposed restaurant, which requires a special council permit. By way of background, this is the building. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It was most recently used as the pub. It was actually Doyon's showroom before that. And we are located in the Marine Industrial District, which we'll come back to in a moment. As for the background of the applicant, this is Neil Maver. He was raised in Beverly, but don't hold it against him. He was a frequent visitor to Gloucester and actually moved to Gloucester a few years back and lives here now. And this is part of his way looking to kind of give back to the community. He is currently a chef at Tono. He was actually selected by their owners to helm the opening of their Wakefield location. And through his time there, has experience managing multiple kitchens across multiple locations. Prior to that, he was on the south end of Boston at Gaslight. So he comes with a wealth of knowledge and experience, both in the industry in general and also about restaurant touring in Gloucester specifically. I have attached full-size versions of all the plans. If anyone has any questions that we need to come back to, I will just kind of quickly go through these. I will pause right here to note that the only exterior change is the addition of this door. This door faces basically the St. Peter's Club and Horizons. The door here at the lower portion of the plan is what was used primarily as the access while this was the brew pub. This will remain ADA compatible or ADA compliant access, but the main entrance will now be facing out to Rogers Street. But otherwise, there are no exterior changes being proposed. Obviously, as you can see, the floor plan is being redesigned, new kitchen, new layout. But again, as far as what we're looking for permit-wise and exterior modification-wise, it's just that door. The door is shown again here in red. These are the only exterior changes. And these are the remaining elevations. And this is the rendering that was shown again. Here is the proposed new front door facing Roger Street rather than facing into the St. Peter's parking lot, which is where the door was when it was the brew pub. So we have two sets of standards to be applied. We have everyone's favorite section 1.8.3, the 6-factor test. And because we are in the Marine Industrial District, we also have section 5.18. And I'll briefly touch upon those. So the social, economic, or community needs served by the proposal. So the building is not in bad shape, but it's certainly going to be a revitalization of the grounds, the exterior, and the interior of the building itself. It's going to contribute toward Gloucester's growing reputation as a dining destination, which is a kind of a cool reputation to have, and Neil's hopeful that he can help contribute to that. And it's also going to provide year-round meal options for those who work and live in Gloucester. So this will not just be tourist-centric. Hopefully the locals will make this one of their go-tos as well. And it also bookends the Harbor Walk with, this nice location. As you recall, the Harbor Walk begins over here at the St. Peter's Park and continues on, out to Harbor Loop, basically. Traffic flow and safety. So the relocation of this entrance, besides making it kind of make a little more sense as far as facing the street, it also makes pedestrian access safer because now, although we expect people coming in cars are likely to park in St. Peter's still, any people on foot will no longer need to cut across that parking lot or cut across the parked vehicles off to the right of this building. It'd be a lot easier to get straight from the road into the building. Otherwise, this is Roger Street. There was already a restaurant here. We don't see any impact on traffic flow and safety. As for utilities and other public services, so as we know, this is one of Gloucester's biggest streets. It's located a stone's throw from central fire and police stations, and there's obviously high capacity utility infrastructure in the street, natural gas, electricity, water, sewer, it's all right there. For neighborhood character and social structure, so for those of you who have been down to the West End, there's a mix of historic commercial industrial waterfront with supporting commercial endeavors. There's obviously a variety of restaurants abounding in the West End. And as I mentioned in the application, this is planned to be collaborative, not, obviously competitive is the nature of capitalist society, right? But it's not going to be heavily overlapping or supplanting or replacing. It'll be kind of complementing and providing another option. And then I think it's also important to remember that this location was, until very recently, used as a restaurant with outdoor seating. So although we're here asking for a permit for something new, we're sort of just asking for a permit to do the same thing that's been happening out there for quite some time. For the natural environment issues, I want to stress that this locus is under jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, and there's no intent to reduce green space on the site. And for fiscal impact, you can look at this a couple ways. Obviously for the city, Neil's planning to do some significant work to the building, which means that the assessor's office will be right down there with their questionnaire and will likely increase their assessed value, which means you'll get increased tax revenue from the real estate. You'll get hopefully increased meals tax by turning this back on as a restaurant. And of course, there'll be short-term permitting fees that are part of this project as well. For local businesses, obviously there's short-term gains, construction jobs, equipment sales, that sort of thing. But then also long-term, it helps contribute toward the critical mass of commercial destinations in the downtown area. Closed and vacant buildings are not just bad for the landlord, they're bad for the commercial neighbors around. And so they kind of be able to turn this building back on as a restaurant and draw people in. Rising tide floats all boats sort of situation here. And then because again, we're in the Marine Industrial District, we hop over to section 5.18. And these are the 5 standards we have to go through. We will not be displacing existing water dependent use. Again, we are replacing a restaurant use with a restaurant use. This is not going to interfere with the existing or future development of water dependent uses. This property is actually landlocked. Despite being right there on the harbor, it actually does not include any water sheet. So it has that nice deck, and then it has the harbor walk and the municipal deck that goes out between it and the water. So certainly allowing this new restaurant won't hurt the development of water dependent uses. As far as compatibility with the working waterfront, again, I think the brew pub was evidence in and of itself. The surrounding uses and the brew pub got along well for the time the brew pub was there, and we anticipate it'll be the same with Oak to Ember. Obviously, we're not displacing any commercial fishing vessels. There are no commercial fishing vessels inside the brew pub, and we are not knocking any commercial fishing vessels out of the Roger Street side by putting that doorway there. And then we have to make sure we don't adversely affect the preservation of water dependent uses on surrounding properties. Again, hopefully this is a place where people who are living and working in the area will want to continue to live and work in the area and come on down to grab a bite to eat for lunch while doing so. So I know that was a little quick, but I know you had a long meeting so far. So I'm just going to say thank you. I'll end the screen share. And if anyone has any questions, I can always pop it back up.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Joel. Councilor Pett, have your hand raised.
Yes, I've got a couple of questions, Joel, some which you may be able to answer, some maybe not. Based on a number of the restaurants that are on the waterfront, on the harbor in the marine industrial area, one of the things in getting permits is to allow their restrooms for public access. And my question is that part of the application? Is the applicant plan on allowing public access, not just for customers, to their restrooms during their opening hours? And then my second question is on the deck out back. I know with St. Peter's Marina there is some issues with the city, and they're going to be making some changes proposed soon in the parking area there, and there will be parking for the fishermen. But I'm wondering if on the dock space, is there anything that's going to be providing, say, space for lobster pots or anything like that, or has there been any discussion about any of that?
So the first question is regarding the bathrooms.
Right, so typically to Councilor Pett's question about the bathrooms, bathroom access of that degree is governed by the pertinent Chapter 91 licenses for the property. And my understanding is that the reason that the brewery made it available was because the property requires it as part of their Chapter 91 license. And so the intention would be to obviously remain in compliance with the Chapter 91 license for that building. And then
Can I just comment on that? That's really important for people downtown. So, I mean, I've missed that location not being open for a while because it is important. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
Sure. And then as far as the deck out back, so the deck itself that belongs to this property is separate and pulled back from the Harbor Walk and the larger St. Peter's Marina itself. And so I don't think there's gonna be any plan to be on the specific deck itself. Obviously the entire property itself, and that's really more of a question, frankly, for the landlord. The entire property itself has certain requirements to provide space and usability for commercial marine enterprises. And similar to the bathroom issue, we're not looking to rock the boat, no pun intended here. We're looking to just, kind of slip into the space left void by the brewery and still allow the continued cooperation of the property with the surrounding uses.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But I just wanted to make sure both of those issues were addressed, publicly here, and I thank you for the information.
Thank you. Council Holgram, do you have any questions to ask of Joel?
No, thank you, Attorney Favaza, for those thorough answers, and Councilor Pett, you asked everything. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Council Pett knows that area pretty well. So I really have no questions either. It would appear that we don't need to do a site visit because there's really nothing that has changed except for the door, and we wouldn't be able to see the door changed yet because it's still in its design. So councilors, if you agree that we really don't need to do a site visit, are we ready to vote this? Yeah. Okay, Council Holgram, do you want to
Yes,
do this?
thank you. Yeah, okay. I move that the Planning and Development Committee vote to recommend that the City Council grant to Neil Maver on behalf of owner Gary M. Doyon, trustee, a special permit SCP 2021-003 for the property located at Rogers Street, number 9, map 7, lot 15 in the MI district pursuant to Gloucester zoning ordinance section 2.3.49, restaurant with outdoor seating or with takeout constituting more than 20% of total business or both. This permit is made on the basis of the plans and elevations dated April 29th, 2021 and submitted to the city clerk on May 17th, 2021, entitled Site Plan, drawn by Gateway Consultants, INC, PO Box 6085, Gloucester, Mass. Subject to new information and or debate that results from the public hearing, this special council permit is deemed to be in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance, and I so move.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. I will request that we just a procedural matter in that we do have a question that has come up by, I think, LJ, which I think is Lisa, if I'm not mistaken. So counselors, even though we're in the vote right now, I'd like to amend the rule of procedure and allow this question to be asked with your both permission.
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Lisa, what is your question? Would you tell us your name and address again? That would be great.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought this was open to like public comment. So Lisa Rigsby, 3 Taylor Court. I think this is a fabulous project and
Lisa?
especially-
Can I just cut you off? This
Yeah.
isn't the public hearing, so we're
Oh,
only
yeah.
asking questions.
I was wondering with
Okay.
Mr. Favaza's mention about affecting the commercial lobstering industry that surrounds the dock and area in front of the public space. Could that not be used for the I4 C2 property? I mean, it's like right next door. Couldn't that be used as space for the lobstering community? That was my question, like that it shouldn't affect the approval of this project because there's that giant space and that seems to be the place where lobster traps are kept.
I'm not sure how this is germane to this.
Oh,
permit,
sorry.
Because I-42C2 is probably a couple of 100 yards through, maybe 500 yards from this
I was
site.
just saying if it was a problem that it could be a problem for the
Madam Chair.
space of, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Pat.
Yes, let me interrupt. I'm sorry. I was the chairman of the Gloucester Redevelopment Authority for many years, and we developed the actual commercial fishing dockage there, which still exists. And when the Gloucester Redevelopment Authority turned I4C2 over to the city, it included the requirements for the trap storage, et cetera, for them there. It does not relate to St. Peter's Marina. They're separate facilities, both run by the City of Gloucester through the Harbor Master's office, but they are probably 200 yards apart and not related.
Thank you.
I was just saying that could be a great space if, in case anybody was worried about it.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So we have a motion from Councillor Holgram and a second from Councillor Pett. So before we take a roll call, why don't we discuss this? Any comments, Councillor Holgram or Councillor Pett, in terms of your feelings about this? Councillor Holgram, go ahead.
I want to thank Neil for throwing his hat into the ring and revitalizing this property. I miss the brew pub Something Awful, and I can't wait to visit Oak to Ember. What a cool name.
Great, Councillor Pett.
Yeah, obviously, in today's economic times, we have to thank Neil for stepping forward to do this. There's no guarantees as to what will come out of it, et cetera, but I welcome him. I do need to interject that again, back when I was the chairperson of the Gloucester Redevelopment Authority, and that building was actually the Seafarers International Union Hall. We actually, the GRA actually offered to buy the property, and it was going to become the Welcome Center for Gloucester. So we've come a long, long way from there. Went to Doyon's very soon after. I won't get into that discussion, but we've come a long way from there. And it's not the welcoming center, but hopefully it will welcome many people inside their doors.
Great, thank you, Councillor. So I would just like to comment because this has a use application Attorney Favazzo went really well into detail of the standards to be applied under 1.8.3. Just reiterate everything that he said. You know, traffic flow, the pedestrian access will be safer. Adequacy of utilities, not a problem. Neighborhood character, wow, the West End is a mixture of commercial, industrial, waterfront, and how nice this is to see this being revitalized. Year-round, another meal option for both local and tourists. Revitalized grounds. Another exciting destination, and I'm excited that we'll have bathrooms open again to the public. So I think that that's terrific. I'm sorry, but you know, that's when you're trying to support, you know, you're out walking and whatever, it's a nice benefit for the people of Gloucester and our tourists. So thank you. So I'm ready to do a roll call if you all are, counselors. Okay, Council Holgram.
Yes.
Council Pat,
Yes.
Council Gilman. Yes, the yeses have it, 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Joanne, can you just explain when the public hearing will be for us or Sherry?
Excuse me. If we get in the Gloucester Daily Times, if we get the legal ad in by Friday, hopefully or tomorrow, it'll be advertised for June 22nd. Sorry.
Okay, and we'll make sure that the abutters have been noticed.
Yes, once the the legal notice, the first time it's voted on, appears in the paper, excuse me. And then after we will notify the abutters, we'll send them that notice. But we'll have to get it in first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, that would be great. So thank you, Joel. Thank you for multitasking tonight. A quick 2 minutes on Concom and then back to us. Council Pett has one more thing he wants to add.
Just one more thing to add, and I think the clerk has explained this to people, but it needs to be put out publicly, and maybe this is the first way to do it, that I believe on June 15th or whatever, the Beacon is going to cease publishing. They're going out of business. And so all of these notices going forward will be in the Gloucester Daily Times, and that's where people need to look to see, you know, obviously, you know, look on the city website, et cetera, but for the public notifications, it will be the Gloucester Daily Times.
Thank you, Counselor.
Okay, can I just add on that? It is going to be after July 25th, but due to the timing they only publish on Fridays, we wouldn't be able to get it into the Beacon and fulfill the legal requirement for 14 days before a public hearing. So this one would have to go into the Gloucester Daily Times anyway, but we're already preparing any other legal ads to probably go with the Times and not the Beacon.
Thank you, Joanne. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Joel, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for your sense of humor too. So next order of business is public hearing. Poll petition 2021-004, request by Comcast to excavate to place 1 3-inch PVC conduit 60 feet plus or minus in the city right of way to install a new underground conduit system, starting with existing Comcast vault in front of Main Street, number 417, to provide Comcast service to Main Street, number 427. This has been continued from May 19th, 2021. And love to ask Betsy Cardarelli to introduce herself and thank you for being here and tell us who you are and why this is an important poll petition.
Yes, so my name is Elizabeth Cottarelli. I'm in distribution design at National Grid. Our office is at 44 River Street in Beverly, Mass. This petition is for underground conduit. It's for a new home that's going in. So the request is for 4 conduits so that we can come into the property and then back out of the property for reliability for the other feeds on the street.
Okay, thank you. And Sherry, I'll ask you if you would, if our Public Works Director has sent any information in on this matter.
Yes, he sent a letter of recommendation. But Council Gilman, I just want to make sure, are you on item number 3 for Comcast or 4?
We're on number 3.
Comcast.
Oh, goodness.
Dave Llewellyn.
Oh, I'm sorry. So let's go back. Let me just read this again. So we should. So let's go back to Dave Llewellyn. Hi, Dave.
Hi. For the
let me just read this again. Okay,
Sure.
so we're clear. Thank you, Sherry, for
welcome
reining us in. Poll petition 2021-004, request by Comcast to excavate to place 1 3-inch PVC conduit 60 feet plus or minus in the city right of way to install a new underground conduit system starting with existing Comcast vault in front of Main Street number 417 to provide Comcast service to Main Street number 427, continued from May 19th, 2021. Dave, please introduce yourself and walk us through this. Thank you.
Good evening, Dave Llewellyn, Comcast, 9 Forbes Road, Woburn, Mass. I'd like to speak in favor of the Comcast petition to place 60 feet of conduit from the vault in front of 417 Main Street to provide service to number 427 Main Street, which is the Conley Seafood Limited building.
Thank you. Sherry, let me go back to the question. Has Mike Hale sent in his recommendation on this poll petition, and also have the abutters been duly noticed? Dave, have the abutters been duly noticed?
Yeah, yes, Council Gilman, actually on May 17th.
Okay, actually, you know what I didn't do well right now is that I needed to open the public hearing, and I failed to do that, and I'm sorry. So I am opening the public hearing. We just spoke to Dave Llewellyn. Can you just say again who you are? I'm sorry, I should have had my gavel and done this correctly. But the public hearing is who is supporting, and you're the applicant. So just again, state your name and why you're supporting this. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Dave Llewellyn, Comcast, 9 Forbes Road, Woburn, Mass. I'd like to speak in favor of the Comcast petition for Main Street, starting at the existing vault at number 417 Main Street. Will be excavating to place 1 3-inch PVC conduit 60 feet plus or minus in the city right away for the purpose of providing service to number 427 Main Street.
Great, thank you. Anyone here like to speak in favor or opposition? I see none. Sherry, if any letters on this poll petition?
Yes, we have one in favor from the Mike Hale from the Director of Public Works.
Okay.
I'll read you the letter.
Great, thank you.
Councilors, the Department of Public Works has reviewed the above mentioned application by Comcast of Connecticut, Georgia, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, North Carolina, Virginia, Vermont, LLC, a company incorporated for the distribution of broadband services, that it desires to construct a line for such broadband under the public way specified below. The Main Street, starting at the existing Comcast vault located in front of 417 Main Street, excavating to place 1 3-inch PVC conduit 60 feet plus minus in the city right of way and continue to the private property of 427 Main Street. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of the said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. In an attempt to maintain the quality of city roadways, the Department of Public Works requests the following be required of the applicant. 1, notification to the Department of Public Works 72 hours in advance of the proposed work. A construction schedule will be prepared by the applicant for review and acceptance by the Department of Public Works. 2, Proposed excavation may only occur during accepted road opening and construction season, 15th of March through 15th of November. 3, in the absence of a detailed construction plan, the Department of Public Works requests all proposed conduits and appurtenances shall be placed so as to cause minimum conflict with existing underground utility services. 4, all excavations must be secured at all times. 5, all excavated trenches shall be patched flush with the surrounding asphalt using hot mix asphalt binder at the end of each workday to minimize pedestrian hazards. Asphalt shall be applied in 2 lifts of 2 inches, totaling 4 inches. Number 6, sidewalks must be restored with like material immediately after pole set. 7, all final paving shall be done in consultation with the Department of Public Works and agreed upon final paving plan executed by the applicant. Should you have any questions regarding the conditions requested, please do not hesitate to contact my office.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for reading that.
Welcome.
Appreciate that. Counselor, questions? And Counselor Pat.
Yes, just a couple of things, just mostly for clarification here. I want to make sure people aren't confused when Betsy had talked before. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but this is for the old J.B. Wright part of the Wright Connolly Seafood Building. It's a commercial enterprise. It's not a home. Is that correct?
Correct.
And also that this is for putting in a conduit. This is not really a pole. Even though we were calling it a poll petition, it's for conduit underground, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions? And Dave, and Sherry, the abutters were notified, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I would like to close the public hearing and ask for the motion, and you feel free to waive the conditions if.
I was going to ask that. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair. Yes. Okay. Okay. I move that the Planning and Development Committee vote to recommend Comcast of Connecticut, Georgia, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, North Carolina, Virginia, Vermont, LLC to lay and maintain underground conduits and manholes with wires and cables to be placed therein under the surface of Public Way Main Street, starting at the existing Comcast vault located in front of 417 Main Street, excavating to place 1 3-inch PVC conduit 60 feet more or less in the city right of way and continue to the private property of 427 Main Street with sustaining and protecting fixtures as shown on a plan included in the application dated April 26, 2021 with the following conditions. And I request that we waive the conditions because Sherry so kindly read them and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Counselor Holgram and seconded by Counselor Pett. Is there a discussion?
Dave, it's good to see you. I don't think we've seen you since before the pandemic. Am I? Wow.
That is
wow.
correct. Yep. And I'd like to say that I am officially a grandfather now.
Oh,
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, as of when?
She's actually going to be a year on July 7th.
Oh,
wow. Oh
Yep.
my God. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
that's great. Counselor Pat, anything to add? Okay, so a roll call vote. Counselor Holgram,
Yes.
Counselor Pat,
Yes.
Counselor Gilman, yes. The yeses have it, 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Dave. Have fun.
Enjoy your
Thank you.
granddaughter.
Thank you.
Last order of business, number 4, public hearing, poll petition 2021-005, request by National Grid to install 60 feet of 4-3-inch PVC conduit from MH 369A to the driveway property line. Sorry. lot of noise outside, of Atlantic Road number 238 at a point approximately 740 feet southwest of the intersection of Grapevine Road and Atlantic Road, and continuing approximately 60 feet in a southwest direction, continued from May 19th, 2021. And I would like to open the public hearing and ask Elizabeth Cottarelli to introduce yourself to us and tell us about this.
First off, I want to start by saying I'm so sorry. I heard my name and I just started talking. I'm so sorry.
My error. So
I am so sorry.
my error. Not your error. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Elizabeth Cottarelli. I'm in the engineering department at National Grid. Our office is at 44 River Street in Beverly, Massachusetts. The petition request today is for underground conduit out of a manhole to a new residence. There's a new home being built. The 4 requested conduit are for a feed to come into the manhole, into the property, and then back out into the manhole, into the street for reliability.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on this call that would like to speak in favor or in opposition? I see none. Sherry, are there any letters that have come in regarding this petition?
All right. Yes, we have one from the Director of Public Works, Michael Hale.
Okay.
It reads, Councilors, the Department of Public Works has reviewed the above mentioned application by National Grid to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way named below, Atlantic Road. National Grid to install beginning at a point approximately 740 feet southwest of the center line of the intersection of Grapevine Road and Atlantic Road, and continuing approximately 60 feet in a southwest direction. Install 60 feet of 3-inch PVC conduit from NH369A to the driveway property line of 238 Atlantic Road. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purposes of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of the said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. In an attempt to maintain the quality of city roadways, the Department of Public Works requests the following be required of the applicant. 1, notification to the Department of Public Works 72 hours in advance of the proposed work. A construction schedule will be prepared by the applicant for review and acceptance by the Department of Public Works. 2, proposed excavation may only occur during accepted road opening and construction season, 15th of March through 15th of November. 3, in the absence of a detailed construction plan, the Department of Public Works requests all proposed conduits and appurtenances shall be placed so as to cause minimum conflict with existing underground utility services. 4, all excavations must be secured at all times. 5, all excavated trenches shall be patched flush with the surrounding asphalt using hot mix asphalt binder at the end of each workday to minimize pedestrian hazards. Asphalt shall be applied in 2 lifts of 2 inches totaling 4 inches. Sidewalks must be restored with like material immediately after pole set. And 7, all final paving shall be done in consultation with the Department of Public Works and an agreed upon final paving plan executed by the applicant. Should you have any questions regarding the conditions requested, please do not hesitate to contact my office.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And the abutters have been duly noticed?
Yes, on May 17th.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Councilors, any questions? Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing. Bang. Councilor Holgram, would you like to make the motion?
Yes, and I love your gavel. That's awesome.
It's like a karate
Love
chop.
it. That's great. Okay. I move that the Planning and Development Committee vote to permit National Grid to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the public way, and to install beginning at a point approximately 740 feet southwest of the center line of the intersection of Grapevine Road and Atlantic Road, and continuing approximately 60 feet in a southwest direction. Install 60 feet of 4-3-inch PVC conduit from MH 369A to the driveway property line of 238 Atlantic Road with sustaining and protecting fixtures as shown on a plan included in the application dated February 22nd, 2021, with the following conditions. And I'd like to again request that we waive the conditions. Thanks again, Sherry. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Council Holgram, seconded by Council Pat. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Council Holgram,
Yes.
Council Pat,
Yes.
Council Gilman, yes. The yeses have it, 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Elizabeth, you deserve a raise for being the last one and hanging in there for almost 3 hours. So thank you so much for your presence and your patience. So
No problem at all. Thank you so much for having me. By the way, that was a wonderful presentation on the school.
oh,
I loved the shadow study. I thought that was amazing. It was such a great job. It was.
that means a lot.
Have
I
a,
appreciate that. Thank you. Nice
have
to
a
see
wonderful
you.
evening.
Nice to see you.
You
Is
too.
there-
Bye-bye.
Adjourn.
I'm sorry?
I said motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I second, and I also just want to mention that Christopher Sikaranza is here as an attendee.
Oh, great. Thanks, Chris.
He's
for
joined, I'm not sure
joining
when,
the
but
call.
hi, Chris. I just saw the attendee list and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and
So-
delighted that Denise Pascucci and Louise Palazzola and Lisa are still on the call. So thank you for sticking with us. So I think did we take the roll call to adjourn? No. So we have a motion to adjourn. I think we had a second. Okay. Council Holgram.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Great
Council
meeting.
Pat.
Yes, thank you to everyone.
Council Gilman. Yes. Joanne and Sherry, thank you for a long night. Appreciate it. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye. Chris, show your face.
You know what? I'm using my new iPad and they have no idea what I did. So that's why little technical
I was just looking
difficulties.
for a real wave. Okay. It's okay.
I was doing the up and down, up and down. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.